Welcome to Inspire and Move, the show that inspires you to create, connect, and grow. I'm going to bring you meaningful conversations, aha moments, and all the motivation you need to up-level every part of your life. I'm Ali Aruda, founder of Inspire and Move, and your personal hype girl. I've gone from fashion school to celebrity stylist to corporate marketing to brick and mortar entrepreneurship with my husband, each time learning incredible lessons how to pivot, reimagine, and implement the steps to become successful. I am passionate about inspiring others to live their best life, a life of joy. We have the power to design a life that we love because life is too short not to. The best part is that you weren't meant to do this alone. If you feel like you were meant for more, let me ride shotgun with you, and together, let's get you to where you want to go. Hello everyone, welcome back to the show. It is your lucky day. You get two of us.
Two Arudas for the price of one.
Yeah.
Which is $0.
And we've been so excited to record this episode together. We sort of promised this on some earlier episodes that we wanted to really bring you along for a full download of what our experience was at Chris and Lori Harder's dinner series that we attended last month, which is crazy. And it was in Scottsdale, Arizona. It was amazing. It was broken down into two parts. There was an afternoon, very much your high-level networking. There was an incredible surprise guest speaker. And then the evening component that we got all dressed up and really just had formed deeper connections and enjoyed a beautiful dinner under a beautiful tent with like seeing the stars. It was lovely.
Yeah, and as formal as the dinner was, you dressed up. Like, we definitely dressed up. Literally, there was a red carpet, right? And as formal as that part was, I think that was the most informal portion of the day, as far as making the connections, having the conversations. A glass of wine or two never hurts, obviously, along the way. I think, personally speaking, I think I had better, more meaningful, deeper rooted connections in my conversations in the dinner portion of that day versus what was the curated networking component that happened earlier in the day. I think the biggest part of that portion that happened earlier in the day is what we're going to talk about here today, but was having Dean Graziosi coming in and dropping his knowledge bombs all over the place.
100%. And that's kind of what we want to share with you because, you know, we invest in these rooms. And as you know, as a active listener of the Inspire and Move podcast or following along on Instagram, we are big advocates for investing in the room, no matter the scale. You know, you might start with sort of like a $49 or a $99 investment. And eventually, as you grow and evolve, you might get to those couple hundred, couple thousands. So we're so excited about this investment that we committed to and made this year, and feel that it is just really good karma to share some of this experience with you. And the surprise of having Dean Graziosi be that special guest for this first dinner series experience was amazing. And he is someone that both of us have consumed. We've attended some of his big live virtual events, his podcast, some of his books. He's guys, he's a smart cookie.
Like, I don't think you can really overstate how proficient he is in what he does. When we're talking about the scale in which he operates, he's a great public speaker and all the rest. It's true. But he is a business partner with Tony Robbins.
And Bestie,
yes. And they own 5 businesses together, and that's great. But beyond that, you know, some of the events that they hold, without exaggeration, literally draw in over 1 million people for one event. Obviously, it's not live. It's not happening in a stadium or something along those lines. It's all online. But there are 1 million people all tuning in for the same thing, to learn the same thing at the same time. And he is the producer of it. He is the creator of it, the executor of it. It's insanely impressive when you think about the scale in which that has to operate. Obviously, he has a team and such. But that to be said, this guy's the guy that kind of presses go on all of that.
Totally. And if you hear Chris edify him when they made the introduction and then even read his sort of traditional bio, but he is a businessman, to your point. He's a best-selling author. He's a father of 4. And I mean, just the way he speaks about his wife, Lisa, who is also a very successful entrepreneur.
Very successful.
And a hair guru with a beautiful salon and does extensions in the Arizona, Scottsdale area. But Dean has a very impressive Rolodex of success. And one of the things that I love the most about his story is the story of how he became best friends with Tony Robbins. And we won't go into all the nitty gritty details, but I think sort of high level that years and years ago, he was in a spot where he wasn't super successful. And he invested in this Tony Robbins course that I think might have been on like CDs that you put into your, auxiliary component in your car, like very different than now streaming on Bluetooth. But he invested in Tony Robbins' course. And here you are all these years later. They are business partners and best friends. And I think it is just such a beautiful example and powerful example about proximity, showing up and providing value, and that you never know where things can go.
Perseverance too, right?
Perseverance was huge.
Did not stop after not necessarily getting the exact ideal response after the first time or the second time or even the third, fourth, or fifth time, right? He knew what his goal was and realized this was the path to get there and took it upon himself to make sure that he was going to do whatever he could to get there, right? And I think part of what we were there for, kind of alluded to off the top, was networking.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this day is for, is to kind of unapologetically network with what you have to give, what you need back in return, and hopefully, realistically, there will be at least one, if not more than one person in that room of a few dozen people that could either make that happen for you then and there, or at the very least connect you with somebody that they know in their circle back at home that could then push the needle for you for what you're looking for. But what he came to the party with wasn't anything along those lines. He didn't start off that way saying, hey, you should be out here talking about how and what you need to make your job easier, your life easier. He said himself the best way, and it makes so much sense, and once you hear it, obviously, but also to his point, a lot easier said than done, because people, the first thing they will do in a room like that is see how fast they can get out their message first, how quickly they can spread what they need back for themselves, or somebody else who needs the same thing gets in front of them to ask that same question. But his thought pattern, which is the smartest thing, of course, when you think about it and play it back again, is he's not anticipating that you should be out there selling yourself first, saying, here's what I need, and here is when I need it, and all the rest. His thought pattern was more along the lines of, what can you do to help the person across from you first? Where's the value you can provide them first? And not just first, second, and third. And then once you've proven that you can be a valuable part of that person's life, that's when you've earned the ability now to ask for help back in return. It doesn't start the other way around, where you put your hand up and say, hey, here's what I need from you, but I've done nothing really to help you first or even back in return yet. Which, again, all the sense in the world when I say this out loud, but how often do we operate in our daily lives where we have people who are asking us of things, or positioning their ask in such a way that is very much a one-sided equation or relationship, without ever asking you a question in return, or even initially?
Well, you hear this very common, consistent, powerful takeaway with a lot of these big leaders in the entrepreneurial and personal development space, and that is the act of service. Like, how can I, actively listen, but more than that, see how I can serve. And we just heard Ed Milet talk about that on a recent podcast episode, that service is very powerful. And you can break that down in a big variety of ways. But I feel like that was a big takeaway for us from this particular dinner series event, but also something that we're really leaning into more just even these last 6-12 months. And I feel like that time frame is something that we also consistently reference in these episodes, that these last 6 to 12 months have been very transformative for us, that we are investing at a bigger scale in some of these rooms and experiences, but also showing up to play full out in a very different way, in a much bigger way, and trying to really put into action and practice what we are learning. And the sort of lesson, one of the lessons that we've taken away from some of these experiences is, how can we be interested or more interested in these people, and just asking really good questions, because it's not necessarily about like, well, I'm really great at this and I'm super successful with this. That will come up when it needs to. Just you stand in your confidence of that, but asking those powerful questions to see how you can be of service, how you can support, how you can refer, introduce, connect. There's so many angles that you can play that. and really focusing on that big action of service.
And he made reference to the line of going deep, not wide.
Yeah, break that down for me.
Going deep, not wide.
With your relationships.
So yeah, with your relationships. So you find what it is that you can be helpful with, how you can serve that person in whatever capacity they might need help with, and that's what you show up to provide is that ability in your own skill set, in your own Rolodex of your social circle of access to people yourself. That's how you're going to be able to go to and hit the same spot over and over again, as opposed to staying on the surface level and throwing out a million different things at a million different times along the way and just staying along the surface, going wide with it, but never actually honing down or really kind of hunkering down on what it is that you can be, what you can be helpful with. You can be realized as the first person that they'll think of when that time comes for X, Y, or Z down the road as well.
Well, and that really plays into the value card. That is something we've also really come to learn and appreciate, of showing up consistently with that value. And I think we did talk about this on a different episode earlier in all of the Inspire and Move episodes, but showing value to people that you really admire. And I think this is an excellent way to get in front of, in that proximity of people that you respect, that you love and admire, and maybe you want to be besties with them, maybe you want to be in business with them, is how can you provide value to that individual? If it is, we can use an example like we own a gym, as many of you know, that if it's sort of being consistently in the environment or in your favorite instructor's class because you want to get to know them better, well, then you make it a priority to book the classes that they're teaching, and being top of mind, that you want to show up early with really good energy and perform your best. You can do that in school and university and jobs, but also in this digital world, are there people that you love that have podcasts and you want to share their show, share the episode, link it? I think that is such an excellent and easy and inexpensive way of showing value. And we've had some of these experiences just ourselves that I personally have had. And I've done that because I love this person. I loved the message that they shared. So it was very natural for me to share who they are or what they were speaking about, and seeing how those relationships have evolved has been really, really cool. And so I feel confident to even talk about that and share that with all of you.
Yeah, and beyond that too, I think it's one thing for us to say that and for us to see that too when we're in these places. But the idea of providing value with people that you want to emulate or the people that you look up to, like you mentioned there, you're not saying to do it for just the sake of doing it because you might get an Instagram shout out or you're a kiss ass or anything along those lines. You're first and foremost, you're believing wholeheartedly in the message of what it is that this person represents. And they largely, more often than not, will have a bigger platform than you. So they're able to implement what it is that you want to implement yourself, but they can do it quicker because they've been doing it longer and they have access to these people that allow them to get there that much faster. They've put the work in. Mm-hmm. They've put in the literal years of getting to that point that you yourself would like to get to eventually as well. We're in that same boat. I know of people, and we know exactly what we're talking about, where we see how they operate and we think to ourselves, man, wouldn't it be great? But they didn't just wake up and have access to all of these things and have these teams that are in place that allow them to execute at the level that they do as consistently as they do. They also had people that they thought, man, I wish I could be at that level at some point. So what did they do?
Got in the room.
They went in the damn room.
Provided value.
Then they created their own room. Once they created their own room, it gave other people access to them directly. And it allowed other people to also now find that shortcut so as to not have to struggle through finding out the answers themselves down the road so much longer, so much more expensive. Getting in the room is always the shortcut. But my point with this is until you can get to that point of getting in the room, because it might be prohibitive financially speaking or geographically speaking, or both for that matter, then what are the things you can do to provide value to this person? Mm-hmm. So that you can be on their radar, so that you can still be in their circle of influence of sorts. You can still hear them, maybe not in person per se, but how is it that you can be directly impactful on what they do the same way that you've been able to get or take the value from them up to that point?
Ooh, I love it. That was powerful.
Thanks.
Great job. I think it's a really cool evolution to sort of look on that a bit deeper, like talking about the value, but how also like you kind of want to be persistent with how you are showing up and providing that value. And I feel like the word persistency could be taken in a skewed directions, but I think there is also a lot of power behind persistency and how it directly correlates with success. And before we hit record, sort of going through our points that we wanted to kind of share with you guys today when talking about persistency and success, I wanted Matt to share this, like, I think a really awesome story from your role in sales with the Porsche brand.
Yeah, I've been for as long as I can remember, and that's not an exaggeration. That's a term that gets thrown around, but literally for as long as I can remember, I have been absolutely in love with Porsche. Way before I knew how much they cost and what they held from a potential status standpoint or any of that stuff, which is neither here nor there right now, at least. I loved the car. I loved everything about it. Just for one reason or another, it's one of those things that just bloody spoke to me. Still does. And I was just coming out of university. And it could have gone a couple different paths. And there is a very large automotive group where we live, the largest in the country, at least when I was looking at being employed with them. I was 24 years old. And I reached out to their CEO, their president and CEO, and I sent them an email. And of course, no response. And I was very floral with my messaging, and I had just finished my English degree in university. I thought, well, I'm going to put this to use, so I'm going to write a incredibly well worded email to the CEO, and he's not going to have any other choice but to respond to me and offer me the job, and away we go in sales with Porsche specifically. And he didn't answer me for months. Literally, I would take it upon myself to be the very first thing I did every Sunday morning. I woke up, I didn't even get out of bed. I took the laptop and I wrote my email, a fresh email. It wasn't copy and pasted.
You didn't even copy and paste that?
It was a fresh email.
Wow.
Every single Sunday for the better part of almost 6 months. I graduated in May. I didn't get the first interview until October. And I remember getting that email though. I remember getting an email from his assistant saying, he'll finally meet with you. Come to such and such a place, which was the Porsche dealership, this day and time. So I did. And I remember walking into that office, and it was this long office, and you're walking what seemed to be like 100 steps before you got to his desk. And he's just staring at you while you're walking towards him. You feel like you are a complete fish out of water.
He's just looking and be like,
just
this
staring.
Is the guy that emailed me every Sunday?
Yeah, I was expecting way better. And so I sit down with him, and he says, first thing he says to me, "Why do you want to work here so bad?" And I can't remember what I said, but it obviously resonated because it was an interview that went almost an hour and a half, and it was only the first 2 minutes that we actually spoke about Porsches. The rest of it was anything and everything else under the sun. I do remember before we did skip over to anything and everything under the sun, there's a brand new Ferrari dealership that was being opened right across the street. And he said, "Look, Matt, we're not hiring here at Porsche right now, but the Ferrari dealership's brand new, and I'm sure they're hiring. So why don't you try your luck there?" And without flinching, I told him, with all due respect, I'm not here to interview for a Ferrari position. I'm here to interview for a Porsche position. To which he said, "I understand that, Matt, but you're 24 years old. You've never sold a car in your life. And I've got guys who have worked for me for 10 years, 15 years, and they all want this next position when it comes up." To which I responded, "Well, are they looking for that position because they're genuinely in love with the brand the way I am? Or is it just the next step in the natural progression of what their career is supposed to hold for them at this stage in their life?" He smiled and he said, "I don't care what you're talking about, Matt. You're not going to get the position." And to be fair, I didn't get the position, is the crux of that story. I actually had to go cut my teeth on another brand in another dealer in his group. And only if or when I performed there would I get the opportunity to come in at Porsche. And obviously, well, maybe not obviously. If you know me, it's obvious. But if you didn't know me, I ended up doing just fine in those, whatever it was, year or two thereafter, and went to Porsche and had a hell of a career and had met a ton of tremendous people,
like me,
including you, That's exactly right. So everything happened when it was supposed to and for good reason, but none of it None of it. This bloody podcast right now, our conversation today would not have happened if I wasn't as persistent as I was for every Sunday for 6 months until he finally said, okay, I give up. Come on in. And then when I showed up, I still didn't get it right off the hop. I had to show my value. I had to go prove somewhere else that I can do what I said I was going to do and then some, quite frankly, only to then be able to be given the opportunity to do what I really wanted to do in the first place 2, 3 years earlier.
I love that story so much for, I mean, a lot of reasons, because I love you so much and how we met and all those details. But really the fact that this ties in so beautifully to our life now, that this is an example from years and years ago, and how unfortunately you don't really see and hear of this happening anymore. I think the world has changed so much. And I heard some of our friends in the industry talk about this on a episode of their show not too long ago, of how this is huge, like showing up and providing that value, putting their reps in by emailing this CEO every Sunday for 6 months, not once, not twice.
Dozens of times.
And I think people forget that. You drop one DM of like, hey, I want to work with you. And then like that was the crickets. That blank pause you heard, that was the crickets.
Or what I love is when someone says, hey, I messaged you last week or last month. And it's like, okay, well, dude, I wasn't just like sitting around by the fireplace drinking tea. Like things have come up, obviously, as they typically do. If it was as important as you're making it sound like it is right now, you probably should have done it more than just once and not wait until you happen to cross paths with me however many weeks or months later to bring it up. Mm-hmm. Like you've got to be
persistent. That's exactly, is that the word you were looking for?
It is. I was actually going to say something more along the lines of you've got to be overly available you have to make yourself overly available for that person to see you to
and over deliver.
Absolutely. It's not good enough almost to say or to do what it is that you said you were going to do once you do get that opportunity, because then all you're doing is effectively doing what you said you were going to do. You haven't really raised the bar. You've towed the line that you said you were going to tow. If you really want to stand out, do more than what you said you were there to do. Mm-hmm. That's the impressive part.
Like show up early, have great energy, over deliver, just be in the moment.
Yeah.
Those are all very simple things to do that you can apply, but not enough people are doing that anymore. And so if you want something really badly, chase it. Have your eye on the prize. Have those dreams and that vision and your goals. Be really authentic about what you're wanting, what you want to do, and chase and show up and over deliver.
Over delivering has never not served us well.
Oh yeah.
How do you ever get mad at somebody who does more than what you expected of them, and to do it the way that is only going to help your situation, your business, your client relationship? How does that ever go out of style?
And that's something that we're still really passionate about. We've had some really awesome things happen from a success standpoint recently. I mean, there's also like a lot of bumps and roads. Let's be very transparent and honest here. It's not all rainbows.
Definitely not.
That's what hard work is. It's not always glamorous, but it's something that we are still really passionate about. We've seen and felt this awesome trajectory of growth and experience and change, but we are still continuing to break down opportunities and things. How can we over deliver and be better, stand out more? That never changes, especially as like a high performance individual. I think that is something that holds tremendous weight to always have as sort of a North Star.
Yeah. Complacency equals death, right? You can't possibly grow by remaining complacent. Mm-hmm. Being in one space, literally, unless you're moss, you cannot grow. So something's got to shift. And it first starts with you recognizing that any relationship that you want to nurture, any relationship that you want to have expand over any period of time, short or long, and I mean any relationship, whether it be with your employer, with a significant other, with a buddy of yours or a girlfriend of yours, you have to be willing to be good to know that you've got to show up with more than what you anticipate to get back. And if the other person does the same, so you're both over delivering effectively, how does anything ever go wrong? It doesn't. Yeah. It doesn't, right? Bottom line is it doesn't. Show up to know that you're looking to serve first for whatever it is that they're looking for. You're there to serve first. And the byproduct of that, I promise, the byproduct of that every single time is having your cup filled twice as much and twice as quickly than what it would be as if you just showed up and were looking to fulfill your best interests only from the beginning.
I love that. I think even just kind of recapping that powerful like little nugget that Dean Graziosi dropped with when it comes to relationships about going deeper and not wider. And I think that really supports everything that you just said so beautifully. And I feel like for a takeaway for all of you listening, whether you want to, jot this down or just, save this episode, play it again, but really sit down and reflect and think about your relationships and who is it that you are interested in working with or being friends with. I think both are like really cool and there's space for both, but thinking about who those people are, how can you serve and support them? What do they need? And how can you provide value?
Done.
And reflect on that and then go take action.
I'm down for this.
Love that.
Yeah, this was a big takeaway.
Fired up about this one.
It was a big takeaway, right? We're there for a full day of networking, and you get off the plane and we're thinking, okay, how am I going to get in front of this person? How am I going to pitch that person? What are the words I'm going to use so I don't come across inauthentic and all the rest? And the reality is, our biggest takeaway from that, at least I think ours, certainly mine, biggest takeaway from that 12-hour networking day was, how can I give more back? Not what can I ask for first.
I think that's been a big takeaway for us in a lot of these rooms is how can we provide more value? Mm-hmm. And we came back from one of our, mastermind events last year and took a lot of really big, amazing action in the Walls of Benchmark. And that was one of the best pieces of feedback and authentic compliment from one of our members who has also become a very dear friend. And that I think we've even talked about this on the show, like that she said to you that
we can say who it is.
Our friend Kelly.
Oh,
Kelly, we love her.
Love Kels.
That she said about how, you could really see and feel that we came back wanting to really be focused on how can we provide more value to our community.
Yeah, it resonated so hard. I was painting a wall and she stopped me and was like, I can tell that what you guys are doing isn't as a means of how can we make more money. It's how can we enrich the experience of our members. The byproduct of that is hopefully more memberships, longer memberships, more money. Mm-hmm. It's a business. Let's make this clear.
Yeah.
We have to make money, but that's not we didn't lead with our heart that way first. The byproduct of that will come for sure. If you do anything well in business, the byproduct will be financial success almost always. But in that moment, that's not the part that moved any part of the needle for us. And certainly nothing that at that moment I wasn't expecting to hear from anybody, because you weren't anticipating. I wasn't painting a wall thinking this is going to really do it for someone.
Yeah.
But
it's a nice color.
It is a nice color. But when Kelly stopped me and said those words, I had to remember it word for word, because I had to go and share it with you, because I knew how much it would resonate with you. But my God, it really drove home everything that we thought was true. And it wouldn't always be this way for people, of course, right? Some people, they don't really care anything other than what the cheapest way of something is or the quickest way of something is. But then there are significantly more others that will feel that if they can see that there's value, that people are doing what they can to look after us, or them, that's going to go an even longer way. And so for her to articulate that was everything in the moment.
And it sat with us, that we talk about
still does
in our own walls at home. We've talked about it on the show, or I have solo, and the impact of that really means a lot. And it's also kind of cool to think about how, you take action on things. You're really trying to provide value in the most heart-centered, authentic way. And people are watching, even if you don't expect it and you don't think they are.
Yeah.
And it's wonderful. So just kind of circling back, guys, on the value, because I feel like this is a really powerful takeaway for you that is going to have amazing results on the back end, is identifying who is it that you want to be friends with or work with. How can you serve and support them? What do they need, and how you can provide value.
I love it.
And if you need any support, always, just shoot us a DM at Inspire and Move on Instagram. We love and appreciate you. Thanks for listening.
Have a good day, guys.
See you soon. Thank you so much for listening. If you loved this episode, it would mean the world to me if you took 30 seconds and shared this on social media, send it to a friend, or leave a 5-star review. There is power in community, and I am so grateful to have you part of mine.